Or maybe he isn't. Get out of that, so-called star of the show.
There is a play at the swimming pool called Froggy Fantasy, where all the kids do a frog dance. The kids then come out of the changing rooms with frog caps on. But Rodwin says that they're dressed as frogs. Fireman Sam can't see the Froggy Fantasy because he has to go do a forest firefighting drill. We then see Station Officer Steele and Elvis driving. The firemen are on their way to do the forest firefighting drill, and Elvis has a cold. Station Officer Steele tells him that a true firefighter carries out a drill, no matter if he's sick or not. We then see the kids doing a frog dance. And then Mike brings a heron statue to the Froggy Fantasy. Okay, Mike, this is not a heron fantasy, this is a frog fantasy. Mike then knocks the heron's head off. Not the whole statue. We then see James practicing for the Froggy finale. James is jumping around like crazy because apparently he thinks that is how frogs dance. And apparently Mike and Trevor think the same. But frogs probably don't jump around as if crazy. Norman then says that it's not fair that James is the Froggy star. Sarah and Mandy tell Norman that James knows everything about frogs and...
James has been reading all about frogs and how they move, Norman. And he's practiced for ages dancing in those flippers. It's really hard.
Norman says that he could dance in the flippers way better than James, but he ends up slipping and falling into the pool. Mandy tells Norman to just be happy to be a normal frog. And you know what, Norman? Just be happy you weren't arrested for committing crimes, like arson and stealing Jupiter. Norman then makes a very devious face. Meanwhile, the firemen are doing the forest firefighting drill when Elvis sneezes the hose and the hose squirts water onto Station Officer Steele's face. Tom is in the helicopter with his big bucket of water hanging on the end. Station Officer Steele is soaking wet thanks to Elvis. And back at the swimming pool, everyone in Pontypandy came to watch the Froggy Fantasy. James says he's nervous, and then Sarah tells him not to worry. Norman then mocks James.
Top Froggy.
Norman says that he should be the Froggy star, and he could easily dance in those flippers. But then Mandy tells Norman that there is only one star in the show, and it's James. James goes into the changing room even though he's got a swimsuit on. Why? The world may never know. Norman then sees some super glue, and he does the unthinkable. He locks James in the changing room and glues the lock shut. The firemen are doing their drill. Elvis is in the helicopter with Tom, and then Elvis presses a button, and it turns out that that bucket of water drops the water on Station Officer Steele. Again. Everyone is at the swimming pool watching the kids do the frog dance. Everyone is clapping at the kids who are swimming in the pool pretending to be frogs. Now, Brodwin says that it's time for the Froggy finale. It turns out that James is locked in the changing room. All thanks to Norman. Norman then acts like he's the star of the show, and then he starts jumping around like crazy. To make matters worse, Norman bumps into the umbrella, which causes it to burn. Along with everything else, like the water lilies for the play and that big sign. Charlie calls Fireman Sam.
The Lido. The Froggy Fantasy has burst into flames.
There's a fire at the Lido.
The Froggy Fantasy has burst into flames.
We'll meet you there, Arnold.
We'll drive Venus and Jupiter down.
That won't be quick enough. Tom, you'll need to winch me up.
On a white, Sam.
To the Lido! James!
It's your fault, Norman. The firemen are going to put out the fire, because if Norman Price caused the fire, without the firemen putting it out, then Pontypandy would have been burnt to a crisp. Norman then tells Fireman Sam that James is locked in the changing room. He then admits that he wanted to be the star of the show, so he glued the door shut. Everyone is shocked, as if they just discovered Norman burnt the whole town to the ground just to take revenge on something. Norman apologizes and said that he didn't know there was going to be a fire, but we all know that sorry isn't enough for what Norman did. Tom then puts the swimming pool water in his bucket. Everyone is putting out the fire, because if they didn't, then the swimming pool would be burnt to a crisp, or the changing room would have been burnt to a crisp. Sam saves James from being locked in the changing rooms. Let me repeat. Sam gets James out of the changing rooms. The fire is out, because if Fireman Sam didn't put out the fire, then Norman would have burnt the changing room to a crisp. Norman apologizes for his wrongdoings, but he doesn't get any discipline. All he gets is getting kicked out of the play, having to do fire safety lessons with Penny, and a telling off from Fireman Sam. If I were in this town of Pontypandy, I would discipline Norman and send him to his place. A timeout. Let's summarize. Norman Price was jealous that James was the star of the Froggy show. He then proceeded to lock James in the changing room. To make matters worse, he acted like he was the Froggy star, and then he started jumping all over the place like crazy, and then he bumped into an umbrella which caused everything to burn. So this means Norman locked James in the changing rooms and set it on fire. When Norman admitted that he did something bad, everyone put out the fire, and then Norman apologized again. And what do I mean by saying he apologized again? He gave Fireman Sam another empty apology, and all he got was getting kicked out of the play, which he deserves, but he also deserves to be grounded by his mom. That was a serious bad thing that he did. He honestly deserves to be grounded. And he got away with locking James in the changing room? Norman can take a hike. Hello everyone, I hope you all enjoyed that video. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button because it really makes my channel turn into a bigger channel.